So I made a pact with myself, I think it was after I got my first hair transplant, that I would never again, no, it was before that. Yeah, it was when I started losing my hair. Duh. That I would never again say I had a bad hair day if I had hair. Because I remember saying that back before I started losing my hair, like, oh, I'm having a bad hair day, or you'll hear other people say they're having a bad hair day. And once you've lost your hair, you realize any day with hair is a good hair day. I think if you're watching here on this channel, then you are one of those people that probably realizes that any day with hair is a good hair day. So I wanted to talk about, sorry about that. I wanted to talk about hair transplant people. What's up, John? Welcome. And I'm going to be answering questions as usual. So if you have any particular ones about anything, it doesn't even have to be about hair. It's not all about hair. Just here it is on our channel a little bit. But I want to talk about hair transplant people because I interact with you guys all the time, and your hair transplant people, your hair loss people. And so you start seeing like recurring patterns of these people. And so I think it might be interesting for you to think about who you are and who you want to be of those people. And I got a letter, actually it was through my dashboard, through community, my text message, because you can actually text me. I put my number where you can text me. And it's like this special number that I've got, and you can text me and I can text you back and stuff. It's pretty cool. And so I got a text on that number from a guy earlier today, and he said, David, I can relate to you a lot because I feel like we have a little bit of the same mentality where, like, I'm not like my hair doesn't depress me. I feel like good about myself, but I just feel like my life would be better and I would be more well received with a full head of hair. That's what he said. I'm sorry that I'm forgetting his name now off the top of my head. It's I can't live stream and check. Yeah, otherwise I'd say I don't think he minds. And the reason I don't think that he minds is that I've noticed that those people, I don't mind if people know if I have a hair transplant people. They're just in general the more confident kind of people, and the more, maybe interesting is the wrong word, but the more, sort of, the more like the people that I sort of um that seem to be like they've used hair transplants as something that's actually, or like hair loss as something that's enhanced their lives. So let's talk. I'll talk about my friend Jay International because he shows up a lot of times, and we've done a couple videos for this channel. And Jay has had tons of hair transplants. I don't even know if he knows 10 hair transplants, maybe more at this point. And his hair doesn't look great yet. It definitely does not look great yet. And I don't know if it's ever looked great in all of that time, right? I don't even know if it's really ever looked really good during any of that time, from what I sort of understand from him. I've never seen his hair where it looked like, wow, that guy's got a great head of hair, ever. But yet, I would personally say that Jay has used hair transplants and hair loss to actually enhance his life. And that's crazy because he hasn't even really succeeded, with in the hair transplant sort of journey of getting your hair back. He hasn't really succeeded, but I don't think it matters. Like, I can talk to him, and I know that he has like developed as a person because of his hair loss. And I think that he would say as well that internally he feels like a more well-rounded person, because of his hair loss. And even now he like shows that on YouTube, shows his body hair transplants and doing these like what would be considered to a lot of people as like extreme surgeries, and he documents that on YouTube. But I think there's a lot of confidence that he has gained in going through that. So I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments. Yeah, and then what's really interesting is that I also hear from guys that actually have, like, pretty good hair. Like, they're already really handsome dudes, right? And they'll write me, and the way that they talk about their hair, and sometimes they'll actually get a hair transplant. They'll ask me some questions, and they'll go to some good surgeon, and then get a hair transplant, and then like they seem really bothered by it still. Like they don't want people to know that they've done anything. They're like really worried about how their hair is growing in and if it's like okay or not. And it seems like something that's really like negatively impacting their lives. They're not using hair loss, and this isn't to judge them, but I'm just telling you these are like the kinds of people that I end up running into. Um, that it doesn't matter sort of how handsome they are and all of that. The fear that they're letting take over their lives is making hair loss a negative thing for them. Like it's really negatively affecting their lives. So, and I do find that it seems for some reason the people who are more willing to share their hair loss experience. I'll answer these questions in just a second. Um, so yeah, the people who are willing to share their experience more so, um, and are more open about it, those seem to be the more confident people, and also the people who, no matter how well their hair transplant turns out, seem to be like more positively affected by it. It sort of becomes like a positive part of who they are, that experience rather than a negative part. So something for you to consider as you're going through all of this. All right, so let's answer some questions now. All right, yeah, some great ones too. Truth, good to see. Yeah, good to see you here, John. Axel says, "No, I forgot to buy my finasteride. It's been 3 days without taking it. Don't worry, Axel, about the 3 days. It's not a big deal. It's not going to be a win or lose for your hair. Just an accidental 3 days without taking finasteride. So you're all good." Axel says, "You got great hair, man. You got wavy hair." Yeah, I used to hate my hair actually, or not hate, but I didn't like my hair a lot before I started losing it. So it's like you don't know what you've got till it's gone, you know? And so I never really liked that my hair was kind of wavy and curly, and I felt like it was difficult to comb. And I always wanted like that just kind of straight, Zach from Saved by the Bell sort of hair. But yeah, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And now I really appreciate my hair. So the reason I titled this video "Bad Hair, Don't Care" for the live stream was that my hair now is it's starting to fall out. Like it's gotten way thinner here in the last like it's so obvious now, the transplanted and non-transplanted area here, you see? And that's because the transplanted hair, when it was like right after the transplant, it was just all like really like pretty even and thick, and it looked great. But now that I've gone through the transplant, and a lot of the transplanted hair is falling out. Not all of it, but like a good amount of it, because that's just a process that it goes through. Then now my hair is like pretty funny looking. So yeah, and now it's like a much more obvious like horseshoe kind of pattern, as opposed to right after the transplant. It all looked like a little bit more even there. How long have you been on the finasteride? Bachatero Lion says, "How long have you been on the finasteride minoxidil biotin pill?" That's the oral pill of finasteride minoxidil and biotin. I've been on that for about a year, I think. About a year. Yeah, maybe like a little over a year. Kelly Kaysen I was thinking of going to Dr. Brett Bolton at Great Hair Transplants. What do you think? Steve Cook was on their site. So yeah, Steve Cook does not work for them anymore. So yeah, I would just so Dr. Yeah, I would just, if I was you, before I would get a hair transplant with Dr. Bolton, I would just want to know about his medical history, what like his medical licenses and if he's ever lost any of them, and things like that. So you can just Google Dr. Brett Bolton, the Tennessean, claims he's Jesus Christ and the Son of God mental institution, something like that. And if you Google that, there'll be articles that come up. I know there was one that was in the Tennessean because he used to operate in Tennessee, in Brentwood. So, but yeah, Dr. Bolton had his medical license suspended in Tennessee, I think permanently suspended. I know he's never worked here again. And his medical license was also previously suspended, I think also permanently in Ohio for committing fraud. So he's already had his medical license suspended in 2 states, but he still has maintained it in Florida, and so he is practicing down there. So yeah, when he was committed to the mental institution against his own will and punched a guy randomly and said that he was Jesus Christ and the Son of God, people in Florida did not think that that was reason to take his medical license away. So yeah, he can still cut you up down there. So, so yeah, that's my answer, Kelly. Just make sure you know about him. If you read all that stuff, true stuff about him, and you still want him to sedate you and give you one of these scars right there that he gave me, then that's way below the donor zone, the safe donor zone right there, way below. Every surgeon that you'll ever ask, that's a scar that he gave me, Dr. Bolton. And every surgeon that you will ever ask will say, you should never do an FUT surgery down there. But you know what? Dr. Bolton is paid by the centimeter of flesh, of tissue. So he makes more money if he takes more tissue. And the lower you go on the head, the more tissue that he can take, and the more I have to pay, or I had to pay. So yeah. That's about that. But yeah, Steve Cook definitely does not work for them anymore and never, ever will again. But hey, he wasn't aware that, Dr. Bolton was going to do all that kind of stuff. But yeah. And I wasn't either. It was something that, yeah, surprise, surprise. Mr. Lyon says, just finished my 3rd FUE with Dr. Mwamba, 588 grafts. Awesome. I hope you're really happy with it. I had a really good experience with Dr. Mwamba. He's a very, very cool guy. I had a great experience with him. So John says, if you're not confident or happy without hair, I'd be very surprised if hair magically made you happy or confident. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think that you're right. And yeah, I think you're right. David, did you stop finasteride when conceiving, and what's a good strategy? Yes. So I did stop finasteride when conceiving. And I don't know if that was necessary or not, though. That was my sort of plan behind it. But I just had my 2nd child, and she was born while she was conceived while I was on finasteride, this finasteride minoxidil biotin pill. So yeah, so it is definitely possible to still get somebody pregnant when you're on finasteride. So yeah, I think if I was you, I wouldn't stop finasteride to conceive. I would definitely give it a shot for a while. Give it a shot, or many shots for a while you're on finasteride, because it's not going to affect the baby or anything like that, getting pregnant while you're on finasteride. So give that a shot, and if it's not working, then yeah, then you might want to consider stopping finasteride for a little while and trying that again. But give it some shots first. Axel says, before losing it, that's exactly how I feel now. I used to not even care about it at all, but then I started losing hair, and all of a sudden became a hell. Yeah, I do know the feeling a bit. David, Joshua Pitt says, do you have to do a lot of preparation and appointments before a hair transplant, or do you just walk right into a clinic and get it done? That's a great question, Joshua. And so generally all clinics that are good are going to be booked a little ways out. Like are not going to probably be able to like put you in the chair the next day. So that's something for you to consider, I think, first off. Second, if a clinic is a good clinic, they're going to want to check on certain things about you before they do surgery on you. So they're going to want to understand what kind of preventative treatments you're using, talk a bit about your family history, find out your age, and make sure if you're not on the right preventative treatment regimen, a lot of good clinics, most good clinics won't actually do surgery on you, depending on those other factors, your age and level of baldness and family history and all those sorts of things. So to give you an idea, I know that Dr. McGrath, who did my last surgery, he turns away 85% of the business that comes into his office and calls him. Like 85% of the people who go into Dr. McGrath's office and say, I'd like to get a hair transplant, he says no, either not right now or never. So one or the other, just based on a lot of different things, what their expectations are versus reality, whether or not they're willing to use preventative treatments, different things like their age, or saying, you need to do this or this first, or you might want to try this, or there's just so many different things like that. So yeah. Then as far as preparations besides that, Joshua, there are other things too. So for instance, you're not supposed to drink coffee for at least, I think it's like 4 or 5 days before a hair transplant, because of the way that you can bleed, that can change the way that you bleed. You're not supposed to drink alcohol. So like alcohol, coffee, you're not supposed to take, I know, multivitamins, and I think it's like vitamin E you're not supposed to take. So like you want about at least about a week out in advance of having a hair transplant from when you decide, just to cut certain things like out of your diet and make sure that you're doing the correct pre-op things, because not doing those correctly can make for a really like disaster of a surgery. So make sure, and every hair transplant that you go to that's a good clinic will give you pre-op instructions. So that are probably about a week out, the different things you need to do, and also like whether you need to shave your head or like what all those different sorts of things. So yeah, you do need a little bit of preparation. I would say at least a week. Hopefully that answers your question. Tom says, is it possible to get a hair transplant without finasteride? I'm a good Norwood 2 with no thinning elsewhere. I'm stable and on PRP since over 3 years, and I'm 40 years old. Yeah, then I don't know, like Norwood 2 that looks like right in my mind exactly, but it doesn't sound that bad. I'm kind of just thinking that's just a little bit of regression here. And so, yes, I would say that it's definitely possible. 40 years old, especially think about what your dad looked like, when he, I don't know if he is still alive, or what his hair was like at a certain age. If like he also was in the same kind of position. Yeah, and in 40, I would say, yeah, I think you're probably good without taking finasteride. I'm not a doctor now, but that's kind of my take on it. I think a lot of ethical clinics would probably still operate on you, based on that age, 40 years old, and not like major regression. Because at that point, you have enough donor hair that even if you do start receding more, you probably should still be good with just doing, another procedure or two to, as as things progress, if they do just a little bit more. Versus if you were like 20 years old in World War II, then it might be a little bit of a different story. Yeah, it would be a lot of different story, actually. So yeah, I think you'd probably be good. Mr. Lyon says, What was your reasoning to go to Dr. Mwamba instead of Dr. McGrath for your scar revision? How did you come across him? Can you give me a quick overview of your experience with him? Did you also do pop? Um, I don't know what pop is. I didn't have popping, so I know that popping is something that can happen during surgery where you can have grafts popping, and that's really not a good thing. Like they're popping out when you're trying to stick them in to the slots. So yeah, I didn't have popping. I don't know if that's maybe you're saying did you also do PRP? I've never done PRP. So yeah, what was your reason to go to Dr. Mwamba instead of Dr. McGrath for your scar revision? Reasoning was a couple of things. So I think the first one was that I felt like it was important for my viewers, for me to have, for you guys, for me to have more experience with more surgeons, you know? And I actually called Dr. McGrath. He's a very close friend of mine. And I told him about this and totally had his blessing on going and getting surgery with Dr. Mwamba. And Dr. McGrath knows Dr. Mwamba. You know, not I don't think they've worked together much, but like he definitely knows who he is, and he knows that he has a good reputation. And so I also checked all that stuff out too, and talked to Dr. McGrath about that. And Dr. McGrath says, yeah, he has a great reputation. So, sure. So there were a couple of different things. Yeah, one, it was because I know that seems like a weird reason, right? Is like, why would you just go to another surgeon, like, um, just for like the sake of the people on your channel and your viewers and stuff? And that's because a big part of my hair loss journey is actually helping other people, I feel like. And I feel like a big part of this experience for me is actually being able to share it and have other people succeed from my experience. And so I thought the more experience that I have with other surgeons, the more like of a well-rounded viewpoint I'll have with this. And I know that Dr. Mwamba really specializes in FUE and has had a long history of doing body hair transplants. And Dr. McGrath's done a few body hair transplants, but it's definitely not something that he like, you know, claims to be like a specialist in, you know? And so it was my friend Josh who's had a bunch of hair transplants. And I really trust Josh. He's like really obsessed with hair transplants. And we talk almost every day. And so, oh, thanks so much, Kelly. He said you are the number one reason I will get a hair transplant. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I obviously wish you lots of success. So, yeah, so Josh introduced me to Dr. Mwamba and was like, hey, Dr. Mwamba is up for doing the surgery for you for free. And he's a specialist in body hair transplants. And so, Josh knew that I had this scar here. And so I thought, oh, that's cool. Here I can document body hair transplants. I get to go to somebody who's really a specialist in body hair transplants, who's sort of like pioneered doing that, one of the pioneers of it. And have that experience. And then maybe it will reduce my scar, And so, and on one side of the scar, a good amount of grafts grew. And on the other side, not many grew. And I don't think that's Dr. Mwamba's fault. Because Dr. Mwamba warned me beforehand. He was like, hey, we're transplanting into scar tissue. And also Josh warned me. And he said, there's not always a lot of blood supply there, especially the first time you try and do a hair transplant into scar tissue. And so, yeah. So, unfortunately, the scar tissue was like a little deeper there, I guess. And so the grafts didn't grow in there. But at the same time, it wasn't like a loss for me because one, it didn't cost me anything. It's nearby my house, Atlanta. So I just drove there. It's a couple hours away. And then I have tons of donor area here, like tons of donor hair. So I didn't have to like worry about losing donor hair, because I have lots and lots of donor hair there that we can transplant into scars over and over and over if we want to. So that was my reasoning, was really just have a more well-rounded experience to share with you guys. And yeah, that was it. And I had a really good experience with Dr. Mwamba. So, yeah, it was good. And also Dr. Truett Bridges worked on me as well. So it's like I just got to have a lot of different surgeons work on me and see their work up close and kind of get their viewpoints and have more to share with you guys. All right, next. New Sorry, but I'm new in this area. I went to a doctor in Japan where I live, and they told me I need 3,000 grafts for the vertex and mid scalp, FUT or FUE. For a large amount of hair, you recommend me FUT or FUE. It's hard for me to do these kind of recommendations, you know? Yeah. You really need to go because I'm not like one, I'm not a doctor, you know, and so I can only give my experience. And and two, I'm not looking at you, you know, and there are going to be things that a doctor is going to see by looking at you in person that, like the shape of your head, you know, for instance, that is going to help decide those things on a FUT or versus FUE. So really what you need to do, my advice is go to a couple of surgeons, preferably at least one, you know, that does both FUE and FUT and does a lot of both kinds of surgeries and ask them what they think you should do, FUT or FUE, because they're going to give you a more non-biased opinion on which surgery they think is going to be better for you because they have the potential of getting your business either way, you know? Donna says, I feel pathetic. I'm suicidal over thinning hair. I just want to stop caring. Man, I'm so sorry to hear that, man. Well, I don't think, yeah, suicide is, I don't, I don't think is the way to go. Hmm, I don't know what my advice to you would be really. I mean, because I know we've kind of talked on here before, Adonis, and I think one option might be because just they're more readily available and it's not surgery and all these different things might be just to try a hair system like to see just try it like it's not going to cost you that much money to try it out and maybe you'll hate it. I mean then you're back to the same square one, but I don't think there's not like there's a low barrier to entry for a hair system, so that might just be something that you should try first, you know? Try also shaving your head, like, just completely. Like, I think try these different things to see how they make you feel because there are options other than surgery, you know? And one of those might suit you in some kind of way. Or maybe you'll realize that, um, you love the hair system, but like you don't like doing the frontal hairline, and maybe you have enough donor hair to do your frontal hairline and then put a hair system behind it or something. Like people do that too. So there's sort of always options. I think that's the thing you need to keep in mind is that there are always options. And who knows, you know, maybe hair cloning does become a thing in like 5 to 10 years, and you can just clone all your hair and get it all put back on. So, um, yeah, so you know there's always sort of hope eventually. Matt said, I just had FUT 3 days ago and my eyelid is swollen. Is this normal? um that should not happen to you really. Yeah, so but there are reasons that that could have happened. So after surgery, you're supposed to sleep sitting up. So did you sleep sitting up? Because if you didn't, yes, that can definitely happen to you. So you need to be sleeping at least I think it's like this kind of an angle. So what is that, like a 45-degree angle? You need to be sleeping at least at a 45-degree angle for at least the first 3 nights. Also, you should be working the fluid to the sides like this because the problem is the fluid can drain down and then it can give you swelling all in here and everything. So, were you doing those things? Because if you slept that way and you also did, you know, did all this pushing on a regular basis for those at least three or 4 days afterward, then you shouldn't have that. So you might have had too much, like, you know, numbing fluid used on you or something. Um, yeah, I don't think it's that normal if you did those things correctly. If you slept laying down for the first 3 nights, then yeah, it's pretty normal for you to you to have that because the fluid's got to drain somewhere. But don't worry, it's going to go away. So that's the main thing, is you don't have to worry that this is not a permanent issue. All of that fluid is going to drain and your eyelid is going to go back right back to normal. Balding is literally a nuclear bomb. Every woman who liked me when I had hair blocked and deleted me. Ouch. Wow. Well, you know, that's interesting. That's pretty intense. I found that girls were more interested in me for sure with hair, for sure. But it definitely wasn't like a killer for me. Like I still got dates and got laid and all that stuff when I didn't have hair. So, yeah. But you might want to try the hair system thing too, if you're not going to get a hair transplant. See what happens, That's the thing, is like this is all just a game of sort of like makeup, of dress up. It doesn't matter whether it's permanently attached to your head or not. This is all just like being who we want to be. Like look at Prince. Prince is one of my favorite artists ever. Look at those hairstyles that he had. Like I don't think a lot of those were his actual real hair. He had extensions of all kinds put in, but who cares? He just tried on different looks. Look at, Elton John has worn a hair system for the last like 20 years, nobody cares. Dolly Parton, huge sex symbol, she's worn a wig, a hair system, or whatever, in every picture basically that's ever existed of her, she said. Brandon says, I'm about to get my 3rd hair transplant. Who is the best doctor in South Florida? I do not know, Brandon. Yeah, I try not to do doctor recommendations in general, other than people that have worked on me, or I'm like just very confident in a certain clinic because of just their long-standing history. In South Florida, like nobody pops to my mind that I know that is great. Yeah. So sorry, Jason. I don't know when hair cloning is going to be a thing. Maybe it's going to be a long time before it is. You're so welcome. Brandon says, thank you for all the videos you made. Showing me your progress helps you give the courage to even start in the first place. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Feel free to message me or leave a comment if you have any more questions. I read all the comments and try and reply to all of them. It's really the hair transplant thing, like if done correctly, is really not that big of a deal. The surgery is like very bearable. It's not painful. It's not really that annoying. Like, especially recently, I used the Surgiheal Pro, and I sprayed that on all the different donor area, and I didn't have any itching or anything. It was really a pretty simple surgery. So it's really just about having the right plan going into the surgery, and making sure that when I say plan, I mean the preventative treatments, hair loss treatments, you're getting the right kind of surgery done. You understand how many more surgeries you're going to probably need to get to the, place that you want to be, and sort of all those things. Okay, I'm going to answer like 3 more questions and then head off. The swelling for my brother was so bad. It was far worse for my brother. The Turkish Airlines flight attendant was actually really worried for him. He recovered in less than 5 days. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of these clinics that aren't as so experienced, or techs that are working doing the numbing that aren't so experienced, they can use way too much numbing fluid, and you can actually die of lidocaine poisoning. You can literally, like, there have been people that have died of lidocaine poisoning. So it is something where somebody really needs to know what they're doing. I don't know anything about Yacker hair restoration in Texas. Look into Hassan, San, and Wong if you are researching. Yeah, absolutely. They're a really top clinic. Yeah, I can't really go into like pricing stuff. It's not something I'm really an expert on, like pricing around the world. Jason says, all right, which is the last thing. I don't think this is a question, but I'm just going to relay this because I think it's important. Jason Daniel says, I was scared as whatever before my procedure. But once everything got going, I felt more comfortable and slept for like half of it. Felt like a spa day looking back on it. Yeah, if it's done well, if your surgery is done well by a top surgeon, then it really should kind of feel like a spa day when you're done with it. It really should. So, yeah. Thoughts on future hair revival? I don't know anything about them, so I'm gonna look them up after this. Well, cool, guys. Oh, Shan, is Dr. McGrath in Austin or Houston? He is in Austin. All right, well, I'm gonna head out. It was great chatting with you guys, fun answering your questions, and just leave a comment on any other videos or this one if you have any more questions. And yeah, it's good chatting with you, and I hope that you end up one of the cool hair transplant patients that that writes me. I'm sure you guys all are going to. See ya.